Hey everybody, this is Cody. I want to show you today one technique for isolating images from their background in Adobe Photoshop. This is a technique. It's not necessarily the best technique in every situation, but it's a good technique, I think, when you have a pretty complex isolation job to do. And here's how to do it. The first thing that I always do is in my layers palette, I duplicate the layer twice, the background layer twice. Here's why. First of all, I just want to delete the locked one. Um, and one of them is just for backup purposes. And then I create a new layer and I put that in the background and I select everything. I just pushed Command A. I'm on a Mac. Choose a really bright, vivid color and I press Alt Delete to fill in that layer. And that gives me, you can see as I modify the opacity here, that's giving me a background to see through as I isolate this image. So it's just sort of setting up my workspace so that as I isolate this image, I can see through. Now what I want to do is click on this top layer, and I want to click Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. And this adds a layer mask onto this layer. Now, the way that this layer mask works is kind of interesting. This is, you want to be sure not to click on this. Notice how the black box goes onto the image. You want to be sure you click on the layer mask, or else you'll accidentally end up painting all over this image and not know it. If I take this and let's say I get black. Oh, that's a selection, sorry. Let me get a big brush for starters, just to kind of show you how this works. Okay, by painting black onto this layer mask, I'm basically erasing what's there. And if I actually use a grayscale, it's going to have an opacity to it. Now, what's nice about this technique is if I mess up, I can always go back to white and paint back in just the part that I messed up, right? So I usually start by the delete in the, oh, sorry about that. I usually start by selecting a very large areas and deleting because we know, hold on, I don't want to have to pull all of that out with the actual brush. All right, so I kind of just block it in like this first. You can see as I do this, as I delete these things, up there at the top on my layer mask, the layer mask is filling in with some black there. And I don't yet know how I want to deal with shadows on the feet, so I'm not gonna cut that too tight yet. And oh. All right, so now when we actually scroll into the image, I like to use a Wacom tablet. Yes, that's particularly good for this technique. I'm on white, so I'm going to be painting on. I need to switch that to black. And you'll see here, now I'm getting down to my actual details. Now, what I like about this technique versus, using a pen tool or anything like that is I can change to a soft brush. And with the soft brush, in these areas where hair, for example, is sort of blending with light, I can keep some of that hair in place and yet create a transparency again for whatever background that I put in place. And then as I go, I can change the brush size so that when I get down into these really tight areas here, I can make my cut tight. And the whole time through, now you have to be careful because doing this with one color is not enough. I find that the best technique to do is actually do multiple colors. For example, if I put a black background on here now, so you can kind of see some grayness in there where it felt like I got rid of the background there, but I wasn't quite pressing hard enough on my pen. And so you can see the importance there of actually changing it depends. I mean, if you're working against, if you know that the background on this is going to be white, you don't have such a need to change that color. Um, but if you know, and that's a little too big there. If you don't know, if you know that it could be, okay, it could be a dark blue, for example. So um, you want to put that on there and go with the, or something like this. There you go. So you can see there that I'm able to click on the layer mask to edit on the layer mask. Okay, so you can see here now I can just sort of scrub away this background, and then as I get in on the detail, I can slow down a little bit and be a little bit more careful. And I can choose from a variety of different brush styles. Here I'm just trying to stay close to this head. Now another thing you want to be sure you do is isolate at your, I intend to shrink this image down after I'm done isolating it and use it in a newsletter, a web page type email. And so it's actually only going to be about 600 pixels wide, probably in its final form. But what I want to be sure to do is make sure that I'm doing my ISO, that I do not shrink the image and then do the isolation, because you're jumping, you're reducing the quality before doing the isolation. You don't want to do that. You want to isolate at the highest resolution possible so that you can really zoom in like I've got here and get as tight as you can around these curves and things like that. So I'm just going to fast forward now through the rest of my process, and you'll be able to see the result as it as I get results. Whatever. I don't have a script written, obviously. Let me just finish this up for you. It's actually 2:49, and I'm kind of curious, like how long. This is very complicated isolation, but we'll see how long it takes, all said and done. Now we're going to see what window show layers. We're going to see what I did the background, I mean the backup of that layer for. Once I get down into this feet area, about right in, right in here, I start getting into a lot of shadows and things like that, which make it difficult to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this copy on in the background that I did, and I'm going to take it down to about here. I'm going to duplicate that again in case I mess up. Just have a backup, and I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so now I've got the background isolated a little bit here, but I've got a little bit of the real floor here to work with. So then what I like to do is take a, let's say, gradient, and on the gradient, I actually want to be painting from black to transparent, and I can do something like this. No, 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 no. I've already isolated. Oh, sorry. Actually, I want to do it on this layer. So I'm going to say layer. On this layer, I'm going to say I'm going to add a layer mask. And now, okay, don't want to do it that hard. So if I want to create a circle effect, hold on, I'm thinking. There we go. Okay, now that's going to be a little bit easier to work with if I, that way I don't have to get rid of every bit of the floor, and I'll still have a nice look to it. It eventually blends into the floor, but it doesn't, no matter how much mask I put on here, it's not going to get rid of the floor completely. So let me just finish up some more here, and you'll view it in high speed mode. Okay, so now the image is isolated. This one is probably going to end up going on a white background. So if I've done it well against the darks, chances are it's going to look even better against the whites because the original had a white background. But now if you'll notice right here, not exactly. There's some little bit of weirdness going on in this arm, a little bit going on in this arm. So I'm going to click back on this layer, make sure I'm painting on this layer, and I press the H tool to get to the hand, move the canvas over, and I'm just going to do a little bit more work here. Well, I want to use something, I'm going to make sure I'm on a soft brush. I just want to take a little bit of that dark edge off of there because it doesn't blend quite well. And I'm doing it, oh, yikes. I'm doing it with the soft brush so I could just kind of make a little bit of a fog effect there. If you get too crisp with the edge, especially with this kind of photo that's way zoomed out like this, uh, you're gonna be able to tell that you've done some cropping work. Yeah, I realize that the words that I'm saying are not brilliant. Like I said, I can't. I just need to shut up. Okay, and finally, I'm going to save it as a PNG so that I can preserve the transparency. And I'll save this as a PSD. All right, and the final, let's see, ABC, AB, BB, H22, yep. So the final image that we have here is something like this.